Hello. Oh my gosh. It's been so long. Like, how long has it been since I've said I was going to do a book talk? I think just like ages, okay? It doesn't really matter because we're here. We're here. I have the goods, okay? So to share. Some of you have me on socials and we've talked about excerpts that I've read out of these and just like personal interest, okay? So for me too, I like informative stuff. I love nonfiction. I love fiction, science fiction. Like, I just love to know stuff. So I have a different couple things here. First, I really want to start with pleasure activism because I know I've been keeping those of you who are interested waiting for a long time. I hope you just went ahead and read it anyways because it's so fucking good. Like, you don't need to hear me talk about it, but you can if you want. So yeah, Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Maree Brown. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. This is a great text for anybody interested in concepts of awakening around their sexuality, sex, and all the things that intersect within that topic. There's just so much to unpack here. I guess I'll start by saying that a lot of it is undertoned with uses of the erotic. I'm like a scatterbrained talker, so I need to like read. I have notes here, okay, so I don't forget what I want to share. But yeah, so uses of the erotic, okay? This is a thesis, an essay that Audre Lorde shared, I think, in like the 70s, I want to say. Yeah, 1978. And it wasn't even specifically supposed to be about sex or anything like that. It was literally just about ideas of pleasure and eroticism because I believe she was having like an experience with cancer at the time and trying to... That is what inspired this speech, essentially. I'm not going to speak for Audre Lorde as to why she wanted to create this. But the author, Adrienne Maree Brown, is very inspired by this thesis, and you can, during the reading, she brings up the thesis a lot, and you can see the undertones of it within the text. But I think, like, overall, the reason I loved this book so much was, one, because of the voices of people of color in general, like just the broad spectrum of perspectives and backgrounds that were included into all the essays. You know, she's not sitting here trying to speak to you as an all-knowing being. She's bringing in other people who have different experiences within sex to share their experiences. All of those things I think are very important when you're considering such a big concept and you're needing to unfold all of these layers of what that stuff means. And I think some of the things that I took away from this, because I grew up in a very conservative home, your worth is dependent on your value. So if you are not good, then you are not valuable. And like, obviously, as I've gotten older, I mean, just like anyone who knows me knows that I am the black sheep of many circles, especially my family, but just be like, I'm not one to be told. I'm one to discern for myself and figure out what works for me. And this book has really helped me personally put words to things that I've not always understood within myself, or how I felt about different relationships or different kinds of relationships that, you know, that we're not told that we're allowed to talk about or desire. And that essentially is what this whole point of this book is respecting what you desire, respecting yourself. And I even wrote it here, like when you don't deny yourself, you inherently don't deny others. And truly, to know pleasure, you have to know yourself. How can you communicate to others what makes you happy, what makes you feel fulfilled, what makes life worth living, that life force, right? That life force that connects us to each other. If you don't even have that with yourself, if you don't have that honesty with yourself. And so that is where the accountability and the responsibility to explore, to be open, to be honest, you know, and especially vulnerable, okay, people? Vulnerable and communicative. You cannot have any of these things without those things, okay? There was a part in here that I kind of wanted to read. I'm not good at synthesizing, okay? It's not my strong suit. I'm sure as I keep doing this, maybe it will become a more learned skill, but not today. I just wanted to read to you how the author is defining pleasure activism and what that means, and kind of like the goal of this book and what you should expect. Okay, here we are. Page 13. What is pleasure activism? Pleasure is a feeling of happy satisfaction and enjoyment. Activism consists of efforts to promote, impede, or direct social, political, and economic or environmental reform or stasis with the desire to make improvements in society. Pleasure activism is the work we do to reclaim our whole, happy, and satisfiable selves from the impacts, delusions, and limitations of oppression and or supremacy. Okay, ultimately, there's a lot here, okay, but I think that excerpt there perfectly encapsulates the deepness to which this book goes. And this isn't just a book about sex, okay? It's about everything. Ultimately, pleasure activism is us learning to make justice and liberation the most pleasurable experiences we can have on this planet, okay? That right there, for me personally, as a social worker and a person dedicated to just like connectedness and the authenticity of experience and the power that has to connecting people, like, that is my shit, okay? Right there. Like, I like reading this page, I was just like, I need to keep going. Because it is so true. Like, I think sometimes in our heads we think that like only certain things are attainable in life, like our certain wants. And a lot of times, especially people who identify as women, okay, I'm perceived as a woman. I'm non-binary is how I identify, but I definitely am perceived through a lens of womanhood by others outside of myself. And often we're taught to be martyrs, that we have to give up our desires to, again, be seen as valuable or worthy, or because that's our job. That's what we're taught, that being selfless is the ultimate thing a woman can do. And it's not fucking true. It's not true. It's actually the worst thing you can do. It's the worst thing you could do to pass on to your seeds, is that idea that you have to make yourself smaller or want less to somehow mean more. Okay, like those things, though, even saying it out loud, it doesn't even make sense. Okay, and this book again does a really good job of talking about how we're using the erotic, which is essentially the life force of womanhood and just humans in general, and delving into that to be self-expressive, to feel liberated, to see ourselves. Because when you do that, again, like I said, when you do not deny yourself, you inherently do not deny others. Okay, and this, again, you can see how this extends beyond just sex and talking about, access and ableism and, kinks and open relationships and different aspects of relationships and sex work. Like, it goes into how we treat people. It goes into how we see what we need and what we want, and how it suddenly becomes all accessible and all this thing that we can enjoy together and talk about and shouldn't feel shame about. So yeah, this book is absolutely incredible. I think even if, because of the way it's broken up and the way it's written, I don't even think, if you're not a person who's like it can be a little dense, like some parts, and maybe you're not interested in reading a bunch of certain things. Maybe you're at a point in your life where you're not comfortable looking into certain things. I totally respect that. I definitely have had my own experiences of, this is not for me right now. And I think the older I get, the more I accept that. I'm just like, I'll be willing to open myself up to things when I'm ready. So I respect that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of information in here about things. I specifically really like the conversations around relationships, around sex work, around just like different aspects of accessibility to sex I wouldn't have think about, especially like ableism. Like, we have this idea that only certain people are having sex. It's just not fucking true. And like that, those are like really good conversations. But ultimately I just really loved how it all ties in again to the mind, the body, and the spirit, and how all of these things play into how we treat ourselves, how we treat others, and from this lens, of just, so great. I have chills talking about it, and just, I know I'm not the greatest at synthesizing this stuff, but like, such good information. I don't think it's a book that I would ever sit down and read front to cover, but definitely something I've referenced even since I finished it. I'm just like, oh, like, what, like, if I'm feeling weird in a certain situation, or just like feeling like I don't have the words to explain something, like this, okay? Because this is something you should not ever feel ashamed about or feel like you should be quiet about. There's a lot of things, but this for sure, especially in this Western society where we deal with things like the patriarchy, and again, like what that means, and just oppression, and just like, I don't know, like fucking every day we're told to shut ourselves down to appease other people or to be seen as worthy. And it's just, fuck that. That's all I gotta say about that. Yeah, so Audrey Maree Brown, Pleasure Activism. Again, if you want to read any of these books, please just go get a fucking library card, okay? If you care about your community, library card, just, it's fucking free. Do it. Okay, so these books, I've been reading these since last summer, but I was at the library and they had like this summer reading challenge and they had these books. This is Authority, the second book, and this is Acceptance, the third book. The first book was called Annihilation. Sorry, I was looking at the covers. The first book was called Annihilation, and what really drew me into it was the cover because it was all like green and plants, and I was like, that looks like something I'd be into, and I haven't read sci-fi in a minute, so I picked it up. Just so bizarre, like so just like the whole time you're kind of wondering what is happening. Like you want to keep reading because you're just like, okay, like I'm understanding the pieces, but there's just like this underlying like bigger picture that you're not being shown, which for me, I'm just like, I gotta fucking know, I gotta know. So yeah, the first book was written from the perspective of a character who is essentially sent into this Area X place where there's like this alien force that's being that's living or taking up space, okay, and the government's trying to figure it out. They're sending in these expeditions of people. So the character, the narrator, is from the last expedition, basically, and it's from her perspective. Okay, so when I started reading the second book, I was completely thrown off, kind of, because it was the same story but from a different perspective of another character in the story, okay, and like, again, you're being shown these characters' backgrounds, like how they all got here. There's like this aspect of divinity and alignment almost, of just like they're all connected, okay? Like they're all playing this role, and it's almost, the storyline is almost like, oh wow, you're like, how could that have happened? But also like those things where you go through life, you're like, it was unavoidable, it was meant to be. Like that is what these books like kind of captured perfectly, and I love that because that to me is magic. When an author, like this dude wrote 3 books and did that, like how did you know how everything was going to connect? How did you see how everything was going to go together? Like magic. It's like, that's the only word I have for it. It's fucking beautiful. And second book, though, I will say, was not my favorite. Like Authority, it wasn't my favorite. It was the perspective of like a government operative, and like was kind of heavy in the jargon of like just government, and like how are we gonna face this alien, like what people are we screwing over and what secrets are we keeping, blah blah blah. Like I was just like, oh my god, like please, like just I need answers, okay? And then okay, this last one, Acceptance, completely just like blew me out of the water with my expectations of what I thought. Ultimately though, like I said, how the books drew me in because of the plants on the cover, this book is about how people are just so disconnected from themselves and the world we live in that we ultimately, like the characters in the book, are paying the consequence. I mean, you guys will see how that plays out, and but I think like tying it back into like our current situation and how life is now, I was just like, wow, like this really resonates with me personally, and this is just, it's just so crazy. Like I believe these were written in 2014, and so like the way things have changed politically and environmentally even since then is just like, holy shit. I will say the biologist, I'm in love with her, okay? Like I love her personality. Just if you read the book, you will probably see what I'm talking about. So yeah, these books, whew, I'm really happy I finished the trilogy because there was definitely a point when I was just like, fuck it. The author is Jeff VanderMeer. I should have said that in the beginning. I will get better at this as time goes on, okay? That's how things work when you're new to them. Yeah, the author is Jeff VanderMeer. Also, you may be familiar, there is like a movie based off the first book. It's called Annihilation. I believe it's on Hulu. And if you just want to watch that and kind of see like what you're getting yourself into, even the movie is just fucking like, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what did I just watch? And you want to know more, okay? That is why you should read these books, okay? Read them. Also, just read in general. Read whatever the fuck makes you happy. It's definitely been something that's been like a silver lining to me during this situation, this pandemic. Just having the time to sit with myself and sit in adventure and stories and be able to share them with you guys. Like, that's great. So yeah, that is all I have for today. I will try and be more consistent with this. I will get back to you guys. Let me know if you read these books. Like, hit me up on my socials and let me know what you think, or share your own opinions. I would love that. Yeah, happy reading.